Take it away, sir. Whenever you're ready.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, that definitely ruined my lecture.
You're welcome.
Alright, well, thanks for coming to the lecture, and thanks very much to the Melbourne Chess Club for inviting me to be here. It's been a while since I've been back in Australia, let alone here at the MCC, and probably I was going to come back and visit anyway, even if I wasn't asked to do a lecture, because I really like this place here a lot. I remember the good old days where you'd come in the morning to see whether the club was open and there'd be chess players asleep on the couch. And that faint smell of cat urine in the air. But things have really moved on since then. And not only just in terms of the fantastic renovations of the organisation here, but also the quality of the kids, as I discovered to my surprise today, as I got beaten up over and over again. So thanks for inviting me back. I was thinking what I should speak to you guys about, because I know that you've probably had lectures before on endgames and on tactics and so forth, and you always get some sort of, usually a Grandmaster who's an expert in the field or done some research. The problem is I'm not really an expert in anything to do with chess. I've worked hard to get where I am, but I wouldn't say that I'm particularly talented in any particular facet of chess. When I moved to Amsterdam, which is where I live at the moment in the Netherlands, they have some fantastic cafes and bars there where you can walk into, and they're chess themed. So all the people there play chess. They have league matches there on weekends. You can just grab a board behind the bar. You've got someone playing ICC on a special chess computer in the corner. Really fantastic. So I walked in on my first day there. There's a whole bunch of people playing Dutch blitz against each other, and I was watching these guys, and they thought I was just a normal Australian backpacker in Amsterdam. And at some point, I sort of asked if I could sit down in English, and they let me sit down. And I played against these guys. These guys are about 1,500 in strength, I think 1,600 playing. And I popped my queen on the 6th move. Lost. And I heard them sort of talking in Dutch and sort of making some jokes about this backpacker, which was fair enough. But then one of the guys in the corner actually recognised me, and he said to this guy, hey, in Dutch, he said, this is this Australian, he's a Grandmaster. And the guy said to him in Dutch, you got to be kidding me, this cannot be a Grandmaster. If this is a Grandmaster, this must be the world's worst Grandmaster. so we played on, now that my secret was discovered, even though not really believed, and I ended up mating him with a couple of seconds left, and we had a big joke and blah blah. But now I go back to this bar every now and then, and they still greet me by saying, hey, Wadsworth Grandmaster, that's my nickname as I go in there. My respect is only slightly increased there. But anyway, the point is that I'm not a typical Grandmaster because I study full-time 6 days a week. I'm doing some work on the side. I don't really have much time for chess, and so I worked really hard to get to be Grandmaster, but I find it quite difficult to maintain that level. And the reason for that is because on the European circuit, the people who I play against, the other Grandmasters, but even just the other international masters, the young kids sort of like you who are trying to come up to the top, they're working 6 hours a day, all the time. They know all their theory, they know their endgames backwards and forwards, they brush over all this stuff. And when I go play a tournament on the spare time that I have, my chances of holding it against these guys are really slim. So what I wanted to try and talk to you about today is the one thing that I think I am good at in chess, which is how to be a part-time chess player. How to maintain your level if you don't have the time and effort to really put into chess. And there's not really many books or instruction guides like this, because they tell you that you should really work to become good at chess. So maybe we've got a little bit of a niche there, and I might be able to impart some of my wisdom I picked up from the job along the way. Okay, so first, after so much waffle, we'll go through a little game which you might think is completely disconnected to today's lecture and what I've been talking about, but let me just set the scene for you. So we're going back to 1996, a match between Portugal and China. The best players in Portugal, the best players in China. Now at the time, China was not the chess behemoth it is today. Still very, very good, very talented. They just initiated what they called the Dragon Plan, or so I'm told it's the Dragon Plan, which is that they wanted to be in the world's top 3 in 10 years. That was the plan that they made, the Chinese government, and as you're all probably aware, they've done very, very well with that, particularly in women's chess, but also men's chess. So this is a match between Wang Zili and Rui Damaso, Portuguese international master. Never quite cracked it at the top, so these two are playing against each other. Start off with the Scandinavian. Now those who played against me today and were white against me, with the exception of Ari, would notice that I played this in every one of the games. And there was a reason for that. I thought, well, if I'm going to give a talk about it afterwards, I should, put it out there just to sort of whet people's appetites. Am I blocking you people there? Just let me know if I'm in the way. For the most part, I'll just be talking anyway, so you don't worry too much. Okay, so the guy plays knight of 6. This is the old Scandinavian. As far as like the chess analysis goes, we're going to pitch it all at a reasonably low level, so I apologise to the stronger players if I find it a little bit boring, but we'll see how we go with it. Okay, so d4, bishop g4. Now, I assume that a lot of you are aware of this now. At the time, this line did not have a name, so it was very, very new. Now it's known as the Portuguese variation, and you might have put some pieces together to work out. This was a match played by Portugal. Tommaso was one of the great players who really came up with developing the system, and there were a few other Portuguese IMs who really worked on it as well. It was actually first developed by a guy called Jadul from Belgium, international master, stayed around 2300. So he was sort of the founder, but he's not been given really any credit for it, because these guys sort of made it famous. So imagine you're faced with this. For those who haven't seen this before, you're in the same position as Zili was in. For those who have, just try and imagine you've never seen this before. Looks ridiculous. Black sacrificed the pawn on move 1. So f3 sends the bishop back. Well, we've taken a pawn on move 1 with white, must be good, so let's just hang on to it. So c4. Tommaso plays e6. So now he's turning it into a real gambit. He's not trying to win it back through some funny business. He's sacrificing the pawn for good, because white can just take, and he does so. If black takes back, then he's got 2 pawns in the centre. He hasn't done anything stupid. White just must be a pawn up, right? Tommaso plays knight c6. And you can try to picture in your mind what it must have been like for this Chinese side. Chinese chess players, especially if you play for your country, you have a lot of pressure put on you to perform. He's playing this game against an international master. He's white, he's played e4, and from the very first move that black's played, he's been on the back foot. The other guy's blitzing it out with a big smile on his face. I should have when I wasn't there, but that's what it was like. The guy's been faced with this position. Now he's white, so fundamentally he must be better from the get-go. He's a pawn up, he's just taken a second one, and black's given him a chance to take a third one and bring the black king into the middle. But on the other hand, if you sort of think about it fundamentally, at least black's got pieces out. He's got stuff out. White's only made pawn moves, but still, white can't have done anything wrong. I mean, it's just, it's basically from move 1, and black gives up the pawn. So, in this position, he decided not to take the second pawn. It turns out, and it won't surprise many of you to know, that taking the second pawn is incredibly dangerous, because even though this king sits here, it looks a bit funky, this bishop's going to come out really quickly, and the rook's very quickly going to get to the e file, which is open. So, just know that it's not meant to be so good. Instead, he plays bishop e3, nice, safe, developing move, can't be anything wrong with that. Bishop b4 check, knight c3, queen e7. Still giving white the chance to take, but you can see black's already putting some pressure on the e-line. So white decides, well, at the moment he's 2 pawns up. He doesn't really mind if he gives that guy back, because he'll just be 1 pawn up, and at the top level that should be enough to win. So he decides, why not play d5? Why not go for it? Now, if this knight moves, there's always these queen a4 checks to worry about. Black castles, queenside. Every move aggressive. Boom, from the get-go. Black, the second player, the one who's meant to be a little bit worse, just going for it. Castle queenside, queen a4 seems to be a refutation. Now the knight is actually attacked because there's no longer a pin on the queen. If the knight moves back, this pawn's going to be on. The knight could go to a5, but that hardly seems very convincing. But of course, this is not the way that Tommaso is going to play. Knight takes d5. So he sacked a pawn on move 1, then he sacked another, offered a third, and now he gives up a knight. Standard play. C takes d5. Queen h4 check. This was the whole point of putting the bishop on g4, was to get this pawn moving, so he makes use of it already. King d1. Rook takes d5 check. The guy nicely played knight takes d5. It might have been to allow checkmate to appear on the board, or it might have been because he wanted to lose in 13 and not 12 moves. Queen e1 mate. Game over. This is between a guy from Portugal playing for the Portuguese national team and a guy from China playing for the Chinese national team in a big game. So what happened? How could this possibly happen at a top level? Well, most of you have seen this line before, so it won't come as a big surprise. That all seems very disconnected from what I was talking about before. So let me try and link it in by going back to waffling and telling you another bit of a story again. Okay, so now we're going to flip back to the year 2000. And the year 2000, Garry Kasparov founded Kasparov Chess. KasparovChess.com actually was called, one of the first big internet chess companies. And as part of the promotion, he decided to run the World Schools Championship. Now it was run mainly on the internet. My school was quite a good school in terms of chess. It was churchy. It had won the nationals that year. First we had to play on the internet in the Queensland competition, which we won. We had to play online against people in Australia, which we won. Then we had to play in the Southern Hemisphere competition against other countries from the Southern Hemisphere. I won't surprise you to know that that's a little bit of a weaker field in the Northern Hemisphere, but still we managed to win that. And at the end of that, Kasparov Chess said, great, no more internet stuff. As part of our promotion, we're going to take the winning school from the Northern Hemisphere, the winning school from the Southern Hemisphere, and we're going to fly both of them to New York. And we were sort of over the moon about this. Now in this team, there's me, and there's a couple of 1300s. That's my team. Okay? So we get flown to New York. We're there for 10 days, all paid, hotel, flights, food, all that sort of stuff. It's set up in one of the big high-rises in Manhattan. Kasparov's there, Sting and the police are there, they've been invited along. I didn't know who Sting and the police were. It's a bit embarrassing. Afterwards someone said to me, you know that song? I was like, oh, that breath song, something about every breath you know. I didn't really know who it was. Now I appreciate it a lot more. I didn't get his autograph because I thought, oh, you know, some B-grade singer, but anyway, that was a bit of a shame. But so Kasparov does a similar against. I've lost my D pawn, but that's going to go pretty quickly anyway, so we won't worry about that.
What was your rating then?
Sorry?
What was your rating then?
Back in 2000, I'd become an IM, but I got the IM title at the Zonal, so I think I was around about 2400. I got the IM title when I was 2250, and then I sort of tried to work my way up to respectability as an IM, and I think I got to 2500 by then. The rest of the team, yeah, so 1300s. Board 6 was about 1100, so that's my team. So, what was okay, so we're there, so he does the similar with Sting and the Police, and he did a similar with us and all that sort of stuff. It was all very nice. Interesting stories there, but I'll skip them for the moment. The main point is that at some point we had to play against the other school, and we knew beforehand who we'd play. Their name was Nordsvepers Gymnasium, a Norwegian team. It's actually a Norwegian sports school, so everyone there is on sports scholarships. Their future Olympic athletes go there, and of course chess is a national sport. So they'd all been selected, all the top juniors went to this same school. So board 1 was a GM, board 6 was about 2250, and in between they had 3 IMs and an FM. So that was their team against our team. And now I knew beforehand that we were going to go there, and my school gave me some time off in classes where I could train the boys, which was very nice of them to do, pretty cool. But I had a problem because after this move, they were out of theory. Now I'm playing, so this team is coached by Simon Agdestein. Maybe you know who this guy is. He's a Norwegian Grandmaster who actually played for the Norwegian soccer team at one stage before he got a leg injury, and good news for chess, that brought him to the chess world. He was the trainer of Magnus Carlsen. Now at the time, Magnus Carlsen had just been admitted to the school, but he wasn't considered good enough for the team. So that gives you an idea of the sort of team we're talking about here. So I had to come up with an opening repertoire for them with both colours. Now I remembered this game that I'd seen between Zili and Damaso, and I thought, well that's a pretty cool game, but it's not just so much that it's a cool game. One of the best things about it is that basically from move 1 I can tell them what's going to happen. Now if I teach them some sort of Sicilian, like some sort of Nimzovich Sicilian or something a bit scary like that, after C5 there's a pretty good chance they're going to get something different. The guy goes, I'm playing someone 1,000 points below me, I'll just play knight C3 or F4 or something, and suddenly they're on their own, and I don't want them to be on their own against these guys, right? I basically want them to win without having to think for themselves at any point in the game. So we give them D5 because 95% of the time, people take the pawn. Okay, that's pretty much standard that they take the pawn. They don't have to, but any other move is not considered very good. So takes, knight f6.
What about knight c3?
On the second move, yeah, it was played in Blitz just before by James against me. He you got a respectable position. But white is already slightly worse, very slightly worse after 2 knight c3 because of d4, which is some theory that will be in my upcoming book on this. But anyway, that's not the point now. So knight f6. Now, in this position, there's a number of moves that can be played, and black has a choice of variations. And against all of them, black has a choice of sort of a safe, solid variation, because this is just called a normal line of the Scandinavian, or he has something a little bit crazy, which is basically what Damasio played with his Portuguese variation. And what I did was teach them the sidelines, the crazy sidelines, because no matter what, from this position, I wanted them to be on the offensive. I wanted the other guy to feel uncomfortable. You know, he's there on centre stage, you've got Fox News, you've got CNN, you're watching him play a guy 1,000 points below him, who's just sacrificed a pawn and move on. Like, that's the sort of like psychological effect that I wanted. The match didn't go very well for us, despite my best intentions. One of our guys got a draw, the rest of the guys lost, and even worse for me, I lost both of my games against the GMs. So the final score, because you played one with white and black, was 11.5 to a high. So it was a bit disappointing. Things didn't work out. You know, the guys had a great time. They were just, you know, school guys in our school chess. They got to go to New York and play the World Championship. They sort of quit chess after that. I kept going with chess. I became a Grandmaster through, you know, proper, correct sort of openings for the most part. But then, okay, so sorry, I should backtrack a little bit. So now we're going to go to World Juniors in 2003, I think it is. Just excuse me a second while I cheat with my notes. Okay, yeah, so it's 2004. I was playing against Grandmaster Mark Paragua from the Philippines. He was about 25, 40 or something like that. At the time I was still an international master, about 2400. And he had a dynamite repertoire with white. He sort of came from the Filipino coffee house school of chess. The guys, they play Manila all the time, and they just put you coffee house players to shame in their obscene tactics that they come up with. You know, no respect for opening principles. Attack, 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 nothing else. And he had white against me, and I didn't want to get on the receiving end of this. So I knew that my best chance against him was no matter what to take the initiative from move 1. And I thought back to the opening that I taught these boys in New York, and I thought, oh yeah, let's give it a go and see what happens against him. So this was in the world under 20s. What have I done? Sorry, D4, bishop G4, F3, bishop F5, bishop B5 check. Now this is the main line. If you go to NCO, Nuns Chess Openings, it'll say bishop B5 check is the best line. It's what Jack played against me in our game today. Not many people go for this, and I'll explain why a little bit later, but let's just so you know, this is the main line that up until this point in time, in the latest book that had come out, was given plus minus. Not plus equals, but plus minus, clear advantage to white. So, knight B7, C4. The point about this is, of course, compared to the other line, now this bishop is outside the pawn chain. Remember, white didn't get anything developed in the first line. And now this knight is here, which means that we don't have the same options to quickly get a queen out in castle queenside that we had before. So that's the advantage of the bishop check. Now there's some crazy lines with A6, which was considered the main line at the time, but I wanted to try something a little bit more positional, if you can call this opening in any way positional. Yeah, so E6 takes. Now notice that here I can't ignore it anymore, like in the last line. I've got to take it back. I've got to waste a bit of time retreating. So I play bishop takes. Knight C3, bishop B4. So far so good. D5. Bishop F5. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, there's a sneaky queen check here that mightn't be so bad. Actually, after queen check, believe it or not, you can play queen E7, queen takes, and you can take with either the king and bring your king back to F8 after bringing your rook out, or you can take with the bishop and castle queenside. But the theoretical point is that actually the endgame after the queen's check isn't so bad. And the reason is because once the king gets out of the pin, this knight can start hopping in here, and this pawn's a bit weak, and there's some squares. Anyway, the main thing to know is that the queen exchange is not that bad for black. So people don't generally do that. Instead, he played knight G2, castle, and white must be feeling pretty happy because he knows, everyone who plays against me knows that I'm playing a dodgy opening. There's no one who sees his bishop G4 and goes, oh yeah, that looks quite good. Like, everyone knows that this must be rubbish in some way. So here, you've got to be pretty happy as white because you've maintained your extra pawn, very important, and you've got your pieces out in the castle. So far so good, and it should just be a matter of converting, or so you might expect. Okay, so 95, and suddenly things, you might start to think suddenly things aren't exactly as easy. We've got this pawn to f3, which is the main point of putting the bishop on g4, is to try and provoke this move. So this diagonal is open. Now, I had to put my bishop out here a bit earlier, but there's a good chance it's going to tuck back in at some point. That's going to force this king over here, and there might be a couple of tricks. The other points to note is that even though it looks like a strong centre, this pawn is quite weak. I can always kick this bishop, which is now just hitting air, and it's got to drop back. That means this pawn's going to be undefended. The other thing is I've got good chances to use this d3 square. Okay, anyway, so that's, I wanted to show you, oh yeah, so if, oh no, we'll ignore that, that's not so interesting. Let's look at this. Yeah, so knight g3, that happened in the game. It looks like it forces bishop g6, but I decided to, I mean, the whole theme behind this opening is always on the front foot, to use a little cricket analogy, always on the front foot. If black ever takes a step back and says, oh no, I should probably play a bit conservative now, then you're just a pawn down. So you've got to go for it. And there's two things that mean about this. First is you know what your motto, your creed is going to be for the game, which is forward, forward, forward. And that's nice because you don't have to think too much. If you have an option, you should just go for it. I had a similar position against Jack in our game, and I tucked the bishop back, but I'm pretty sure bringing the bishop in our game would have been a better way to go. I didn't follow my own motto in that game, and I paid the price. The second thing it means is that if you do lose, you get beaten up really quickly. And that's actually not such a bad thing because I play a lot of these opens where it's 2 games a day, so 2 5-hour games a day. If I'm going to lose to a Grandmaster and I lose in 2 hours instead of 5 hours, and that gives me a long lunch break and I can sort of get ready again. So I sort of accept that these losses will happen from time to time, but I'm kind of happy that they happen in a relatively painless, quick death sort of way. Okay, so bishop goes into d3. Looks nice because it hits the rook and the pawn, but of course there's a problem, which is that my knight is the only thing holding the bishop, and he can attack this, and maybe I'm going to drop a piece now. So he's got 2 countered moves here. f4 is 1. I'll just show you the crazy line I calculated if you played rook e1. So bishop takes c4, rook takes e5, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and bishop takes b5. And in my head I was pretty happy if I could get to here. Objectively, white's probably still a little bit better, but I've got my pawn back. We've got opposite coloured bishops, he's still got a few weaknesses. I know that my opening's not sound. If I can come to a position like this after 15 moves, I thought I'd be pretty satisfied. So anyway, so that's, and the good news is psychologically is that white players don't want to end up with this. Now if they've gone for it, they know they're trying to refute my opening. If this is the best they can do, then it's not a refutation. So I was pretty confident he wouldn't go for it, and I wouldn't have been that disappointed if we got there anyway. Okay, so let me just get back to where we are. Of course, so rook e1 looks dangerous, but the main move that seems to work is f4. So what's this guy? Tell me if I mess this up. This guy was here, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So f4. That's the move that seems to do the most damage, because if bishop takes rook, then pawn takes knight, hits this knight, and my bishop is also going to be. However, it's not so clear that things work good for me, because at the moment I've got, oh wait, this pawn is still here. So this guy is still under attack, even if he can't be taken straight away. And this guy is still sort of floating around here. So he played knight c4, hitting this bishop, and also, oh sorry, this bishop is here, so he's not hitting that bishop. He's stopping the bishop from going there, and he's also sort of controlling f2. Kind of, his idea here is that if I take it, he takes back, then this knight is under attack, and it's the only piece holding this knight, and so forth. So this is his way to try and get out of this. But of course, we have a motto, we go forward, queen h4, h3, and now for those interested, it turns out that f5 is a super good move here. Again, going forward. I missed it in the game, I played bishop c5 check. And after knight takes, queen takes, he took on g4, I took on f1. I'm going through this quickly, but don't worry so much about that. I've got plenty more stuff to cover, that's the only reason I'm rushing. Knight takes g4. Yeah, okay, we'll go through maybe just a few more moves. Queen H, yeah. Queen H4, Queen F3. And now he's going to be lost if I can get a rook to the E file. I'm having a bit of a problem getting it there at the moment, so I play C6. And that's basically end of game. If he takes now, I put a rook on E8. Say it's this one. Threatening mate here, but also threatening queen check and queen h1 mate because he can't connect to e2. And the game's over. Now he found a way to sort of fight on a couple of moves, but the game's basically lost and that's not so interesting, so we'll stop it here. So after this I was feeling pretty good about myself because I played the GM, he never got a chance to show his main strength, which is aggression, and I kept on the attack, and I thought to myself, you know, because I only played this as a surprise weapon because I didn't think that he'd get the chance to prepare for it, which he hadn't. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could get these sort of games all the time? But the problem is, of course, that I knew that people would start preparing for me. So in the next round I had to play Lamy, Dutch Grandmaster. He played a line where he gets a side advantage but he doesn't take the board. He wasn't expecting me to repeat it, but I did. And we ended up with a draw because he played one of the quiet lines. So far so good. Now the Dutch had actually sent the whole squad to the 120s, coached by Luc van Welly, if you know that guy, used to be told top 10 in the world. He was the coach, so they had a couple of stars there. Lamy was one of them, and I'd drawn. So then they prepared their international master, Dennis Rauchkrock is his name, or Rujakok if you say it in an Australian way. And he tried to refute it in a way that Luc van Welly had taught him from a book, but I'd done a bit of research on that, and so I beat him. And so far I had 1.5 out of 2 against the Dutchies, and I'd beaten Mark Paragua with it. So then they got to their number 1 star, who was Jan Smeets, who's about 2650 now, and Luc van Welly spent 2 days preparing him, like going through basically, there's got to be a way to refute this line, there's got to be a way to refute this line, this cannot be a decent opening. And so then I had a question basically. I knew I had to play Jan Smeets. For some reason this was the 3rd Dutchie I had to play in this event. Should I play the same thing or not? And any rational man would not play the same thing. So I played it, of course, and he played his reputation, which was not what the books had said, but his own special line, and he got a very good position and he beat me. So that was the end of my little adventure into the Portuguese, or so I thought, because then I came away from it. So then I became a Grandmaster, and suddenly I had a lot of time, a lot of trouble maintaining my rating. So basically one thing that often happens to Grandmasters is that they get to 2500 after a lot of work, and then the very next rating list they go below 2500. It's very common because you put so much mental as well as physical effort into getting to that stage. It's a huge sigh of relief. You play your next game, it'll, you know, more relaxed, lower level, and you drop below. And that happened to me. And there's a lot of Grandmasters you may be aware who have a rating below 2500. And I thought, no, I don't want to be one of these Grandmasters, one of these, you know, sub 2500 Grandmasters. I want to keep my rating above, but I just don't have the time to do it. So I decided to develop an opening repertoire, which I call the part-time Grandmaster opening repertoire. But we can think about it just as a part-time player opening repertoire. And I thought to myself, from fundamental principles, I needed my repertoire to meet a couple of criteria, and I've written them down for you. So the first, it had to be practical. Very important, it had to be practical. It didn't have to be theoretically sound, but it just meant to maximize the chances of me getting the result that I wanted in the game. I wasn't playing against computers, I was playing against humans, so it needed to be practical. It needed to be realistic, and by realistic, I mean that I need to be able to get it most of the time. There can't be an easy way for them to circumvent my repertoire. So in the same way that I was trying to teach the guys before we went to New York, E4, D5 fits the bill because boom, move 1, I'm in my repertoire, and it's already become very, very narrow. There's not a way for them to sort of circumvent where I want to be. The last thing, which you will not be taught by any classical coach, is that I wanted my repertoire to be sneaky. And by sneaky, I meant that I wanted there to be enough tricks that every 1 in 5, every 1 in 10 games that I play, I can just catch someone out in an easy win. Like they fall for one of the many traps that needs to be in my opening, and I pick up a point. And I thought that if I could pick up a point like once every 5, once every 10, maybe whatever, once every 15 games, then that will compensate for the times when someone comes out, plays the main line, and theoretically just blows me away. So I need to be able to compensate for those wins and losses. So that was my repertoire. Now, I want to briefly tell you why I felt that it was so important that I come up with a special type of repertoire when I play against other Grandmasters. Quite recently, I play in the United Kingdom League, so that's England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. They call it the Four Nations League. And in my team I have 3 2700s, a couple of 2600s, the Women's World Champion, former Women's World Champion Stefanova, and me. And I'm pretty sure that I've been put in the team just because the captain likes me. Must be the only reason. But anyway, so I get to talk to these guys all the time, now, team dinners and stuff like that. And I had a chat recently with Robin van Kampen, one of the young stars. He's 18 from the Netherlands. He's about 26, 70. He's going places, this guy. And we had a chat about this line of the Moscow variation, the anti-Sicilian, bishop b5 check, knight b7. This has been played by Carlsen against Svidler, and it's been played by Svidler as white. It's been played by Carlsen against Nam. Okay, so we're no longer talking Portuguese, right? We're talking like top level stuff, main stuff, 2700s all the time. Bishop d3 is this new line. This is the line I'm talking about. And it looks really stupid to put the bishop here. Anyone who doesn't know so much about chess principles, important chess principle, you don't put the bishop in front of this pawn because this guy becomes very unhappy, okay? But here, of course, once you get to the top level, you start breaking the rules. The idea is you want to play c3, put the bishop here, and play d4. So everything's going to sort of work its way out. Now, very quickly, I'll just get to a respectable position. These moves don't actually happen in this order, but anyway. Can anyone tell me what this position, which is the main line, which opening they would most likely think this came from?
Spanish.
Spanish, yeah. Roy Lopez, Spanish. This is mainline classical Roy Lopez, Spanish. Can anyone tell me, I can't remember, whose move is it here? Can you remember? I think it's White's move, is it?
White's.
This is not the exact position with White's move. There's one little difference. Does anyone know what it is in Spanish?
There's a hole on d5.
Yeah, there's a hole in d5, but what I'm saying is that this is an exact position from the Roy Lopez Spanish, except one piece is in the wrong
It's
position.
a Breyer variation, except there's a pawn on c5.
There's a Breyer variation with the pawn on c5. It could be a Chigorin variation where they've played a hybrid with a Breyer with knight b7. Does anyone know the difference?
Knight's still on b1.
Knight still on b1. Yeah, so in this position, in the Roy Lopez, knight b2 is the main move, except that there's another piece missing in a wrong position.
h3.
h3. This position, White's move, is the line from the Spanish. Okay? Small difference. But White's lost a move, right? He should have a pawn here, and then he plays knight bd2, as Kerry says. This is the line that Kamsky always plays, knight bd2. But what White's done is that he's forced black into a funny line. As James points out, he can play the Breyer, and he can sort of kick this pawn back on c7, or he can play the Chigorin, and this knight's usually on c6. So he's forced black into a suboptimal line, which is still a respectable line, but he's had to give up the move h3 in the process. Now I said to Robin, did you know that if you play this line, you get to this position, which is, kind of similar to the Roy Lopez? Because I write a column on anti-Sicilians every month, which is why I realised there was a similarity, but I don't know anything about the Roy Lopez, so I thought I'd ask him to get some hints for my next column. And he said, oh yeah, we studied this. He doesn't play either of these lines, right? But of course, you have to study this. Everyone should study this. And I said, yeah, but the pawn's on h3. And he said, it doesn't matter because this knight's on d7, the pawn's on c5, which means that after you play h3, something, rook e8, knight bd2, something, whatever, bishop b7, b3, yeah, black's lost. And I looked at it. I said, what? He said, yeah, black's lost in this position. I mean, well, it takes a bit of work, obviously, but fundamentally, black's lost. And I said, I guess because, maybe because you bring the knight around here and you just go for the usual Roy Lopez attack, right? Bring the knight to g3, go to g5. See, if white does that, then white's lost. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, no, because in this line with the knight on d7, black's got much better counterplay than the kingside. If you attack here, black will open it up and black will win. Oh, sorry, I played this wrong. We should have a position of this. pawn here. Apologies for that. This is the normal closed Spanish pawn structure. So this is the line that I wanted to get to. Starting it, but okay, it's the same principle, right? So now, if white attacks on this side, white's lost. But black wins, but white wins because he has this position and he can play a quick a4, and without the knight in the right place, then black can't defend the queen side. It's probably going to take another 20, 25 moves, maybe 30, maybe 40, whatever, but white's winning. And I was listening to this guy who's 18 years old telling me all about this. And I thought, there's no way I can keep up with these guys if I play a main line. Like, I've got no chance. These guys it's not even their opening repertoire, and they know this sort of level. So that's one of the reasons why I thought, look, I've got to change it. I've got to go in for something different. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea of the level of preparation that we're talking
in
about.
that, how does black open it up? Yeah, you're saying white's
Playing king side?
Yeah.
No idea. You have to build no idea about this. No, I mean, so the idea is that basically you can bring, you bring all your pieces over here, so white does all the normal stuff. Black sets up his optimal defensive structure. Sometimes he's got a king here and he puts these both knights back on g8 and f8. And the point is that, like, eventually you've got to try and bust through with f4, but this knight is ideally placed to come into the middle and blah. It's something like this, but really, I mean, your guess is as good as mine and stuff. I just knew that I would never ever play this line against Robin because I've got no chance of dealing with it. Okay, so now we're going to flip back to the Portuguese. But I wanted to give you a bit of an idea why I decided that this is the opening for me against e4. And it's the same reaction that I get on people's faces, whether they're international master, grandmaster, or 2100, when I play the c3 Sicilian. If you're a Sicilian player and someone plays c3, you just go, oh man, I'm going to get this. Why can't you just play man? Like, why can't you just play improved Sicilian? I get the same look when I play d5. He's going to play this jump. It's almost like a lack of respect that he plays this jump. I've got to deal with this. What you've got to realise is that in all the time that they spend on this stuff, they're only going to get the Portuguese variation with bishop g4 1 in every 50 games. At a grandmaster level, even less. So if they've got to allocate their time and they've got 6 hours a day to spend on it, this is going to get the bare minimum. And because it's considered to be unsound, they're going to basically study what they consider to be a refutation of it, and that's it. Now, Alexander Morozovich, top 10 in the world sort of guy, not in the world, big wig. Ian Rogers once played the Nimzovich Sicilian, the Nimzovich. This is e4, knight c6, and there's lines with d5 and queen takes. It transposes quite often to Portuguese sort of stuff. And Morozovich just beat him. 25 moves came over. And afterwards, Ian said, what happened? I haven't seen this line before. And Morozovich said, one day I had nothing to do, so I thought I'm just going to refute this line. And so he sat down all day and just found a refutation, and that was the end of it. Which is all very nice, like this is a brilliant guy. But this is the sort of attitude this guy's taking. They're just going to spend a day, half a day, on this bishop g4 stuff, and they're going to refute it, and that's it. But they've only spent half a day. Maybe they've spent 5 hours on this line and they've come up with what they consider as a reputation. I've devoted 10 years to this line. Now it may be complete rubbish, but that's not the point. We've found a position that we can get to where I know more than they do. Now, has anyone seen the movie 300? This famous idea that the Spartan warriors came up with when they were faced with the Persian army. What was Xerxes, what was his, I can't remember. The bad guys are coming, right? There's thousands and thousands of Persians coming, and there's only 300 Spartans. So what do? They put themselves at the end of a little passageway full of rocks. And the Persian hordes come, but they can only send a certain number through the passageway at a time. And then it's 300 on 300. And they battle, and the Spartans are fantastic warriors, and blah, 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 and Gerard Butler's always taking his shirt off, and eventually they win, right? They repel this army. Basically, that's the theory that I'm trying to do here. I don't have the capabilities to match these guys in a normal theoretical battle, so I try to get them to my narrow opening repertoire, and then we're on my turf, and let's see what happens. They should win, but let's find out. Okay, so that's what my aim is against the Grandmasters, but the other really important reason that this opening repertoire, well, the Portuguese is a decent choice, is because I'm not playing the top 2700 tournaments, I'm not playing the big Grandmaster tournaments. I'm playing often these big opens, where I'm expected to score 6 out of 7, or I was expected to score 7.5 out of 9 or whatever, because I'm mainly playing against people who are 200, 300 points below me. So it's very important for me also in this repertoire that there's not some easy way for someone weaker than me to just get a slight advantage out of the opening. And it's also important that there's no way for them to get a clear draw out of it as well, because I'm in situations where with black I often need to win. Fortunately, I mentioned that it's quite a sneaky opening, and I found that that's quite good in people falling into traps quite regularly with this. So I've played over 50 tournament games with Portuguese now over the last 10 years. I've lost 8, and I think I've had 4 draws, and the rest wins. Now, that's mainly against weaker players, to be fair, but against Grandmasters I have a plus score. So if you compare it to the rest of my opening repertoire, like this is definitely the standout compared to the rest. I really struggle with Grandmasters and anything else. So far so good. Now, let me put something else on the board then. Let's have a look at another game. So what I was saying is against weaker players, I don't want them to be some way for them to just get a slight advantage against me. That's very important. There's not some easy way to bail out. One of the most common lines in the Portuguese, so here d4 is the main move. You expect knight takes d5. You get bishop g4. Maybe you heard about this f3, bishop f5, crazy gambit stuff. You don't want that. Bishop e2 is one of the most common things that I get. And I've done a statistical analysis of the Portuguese, and it's one of the most, actually the most common move in this position. So bishop takes, queen takes, and basically white says, look, you can have your pawn back. I don't want to go into some crazy gambit nonsense against you. You've got your pawn back, but I've got pretty easy development. I've got a pawn on d4. I have to be a bit better. And to be fair, if you play nice and casually, you just play e6 and c6, bishop e7, castle, white's a little bit better. But suddenly this structure, does it remind you of anything? Do you think of any sort of like positions that have this sort of, any openings that have this sort of structure? Huracan, also a French with d takes e4. One of the big differences is that I've managed to get rid of my problem piece. So Huracan, bishop f5, you try to get that bishop out straight away. French with d takes e4, you spend a lot of time trying to get rid of that bishop. So we've done that. We've got rid of our problem piece. So already it's an improvement over mainline stuff. Doesn't mean we're equal, but it's an improvement over mainline stuff. So that's good news. In fact, we can already call this position like a theoretical victory because we've got into a position that's slightly better than mainline stuff. But that's not good enough. I don't want something that's just, a little bit better than another line that I wouldn't have played anyway. We've got one motto and it's go forward. And fortunately, we can actually keep that up. So, I think, did you organise the Australian Masters, Kerry, at some point? Junior Masters back in 2003?
Yeah, 2003 would have been.
Yeah. You were the organiser. You asked me to come along and play with it. I think you were going to make it under 18, but you wanted me to play it, so you increased it to under 20 so that I could make it, which was very generous of you.
No, I think the original idea was to have the Masters was under 20, but the other tournaments weren't really.
Ah, okay.
That's just so we can get you in anyway.
Yeah, well, I feel less special now. Anyway, so I was playing against Laura Moylan. For those of you who know Laura, she's the coaching organisation in New South Wales, but she's a very talented junior in her own right. She played this against me because she wanted the safe, solid edge. So, castle, bishop e7. Now there's a reason I don't play knight c6 here, and that is because white has the option to play a very quick c4 and a d5. I don't want c4 and d5 to happen if I can't take it, and there's a pin on it at the moment. And the problem is because then after d takes d6, I take back, I've got an isolated pawn, easy to blockade, positionally bad, quite depressing. We don't want that. So we play bishop e7, c4 queen f5. And little did I know that Laura's actually following a Leko game here. Peter Leko, fantastic player from Hungary, once played in the candidates against Kramnik, all that sort of stuff. His idea in this position is, and the idea that she followed along with, is that after knight c3, if I castle, which I did, she can play d5. And the idea is again to take the pawn, leave me with the isolated pawn. But fortunately, I was aware of a Damaso game. Remember, Damaso is our Portuguese hero who started this whole jazz. Bishop c5. Seems completely out of character with the position because after pawn takes pawn, we don't take back, but we just play knight c6. And again, one principle, go forward, put the other person on the back foot. So now pawn takes pawn, did she play pawn takes pawn here? No, so she decided not to go in for this, I think, is that right? Yeah, that's right, David. So, as soon as I played bishop c5, she got a bit scared and played knight a4, bishop d6. Yeah, you're going to need some sustenance for the fireworks that are going to follow.
That's the idea.
Yeah. c5, bishop f4, and her idea was that she's kicking around my bishop because she wants to take on e6, but she wants to do it even better than the line we looked at before. So I don't have the Damaso position, but I've got the Damaso idea, and I've got the Damaso mindset. Go forward. So d takes e6. Now here it's almost forced because if I take back, she's going to take on c4 and take on e6 with check, and I'm going to lose a pawn. Not that losing a pawn should be a problem for a Portuguese player, but if we're going to lose it, we're going to lose it on my terms. So knight c6, everything forward. Now here, notice that we haven't actually forced f3. There's not actually any concrete weakness in white's position, but that doesn't matter. We're going forward anyway. So knight c6 takes, rook takes, and if anything, we have a file to work with. Now we only have a file because we're missing a pawn there, so that's fine. We have a file. Knight c3, rook e8, queen c4, knight h5. Very one-dimensional play. And now she made a mistake. Knight c5. Theoretically it's a mistake, she has a better move, but it's not so important for what we're going to look at here, so I'll ignore it. Rook e4, knight a5, and this is probably a good point to tell you that if you're going to play an opening like the Portuguese, now I'm not telling you today to play the opening repertoire, is that this bishop e2 stuff, nice and casual, let's just get a slight edge, doesn't work. I'm going to go forward no matter what. And there's another game I want to show you, I won't because of time, but in that exact same line, if instead of this sort of c4 stuff, white just plays nice safe moves and castles kingside, my plan is castle queenside and play g5, g4. No subtlety, just go forward every time. Okay, so that's that game. I want to show you just two more games, and unfortunately for those who are hoping for a lecture on something other than the Portuguese, they are both going to be on the Portuguese. But this next one is probably my biggest challenge theoretically in playing the Portuguese. I was playing against John Ems. Now John Ems is a Grandmaster from England. He's also a very respected theoretician. So respected in fact that he was a co-author in Melbourne's chess openings. He's written about 40 chess books himself. He owns a chess book publishing company, but most importantly than that, he's written 3 books on the Scandinavian. And in all of those books, he says that after e4, d5, e takes d5, you should play queen takes d5. If you play, did I miss out anything in the pieces? I think is that alright? Yeah, okay. So he says that you should play queen takes d5. One of his books has got 3 editions, by the way, it's just come out recently. He says if you play knight f6, then the refutation is just to play knight f3, because now they've got nothing better than taking the pawn. If they play bishop g4, you're already basically winning because of bishop b5 check. Now he's a guy who plays Scandinavian as black, he's written his books, he's written this line. I had to play him in the English League. I needed to win for my team not to be relegated, and to stay in the top division for the next league. I have black. My captain wants me to make a draw because, you know, it's white, black, and I'm black as the Grandmaster. So naturally, of course, I'm going to play the Portuguese, which my captain was very happy about at the time. But this was for me almost like a big challenge because I was still undecided about whether or not I could actually use this opening as a repertoire. Now I knew that if I could hold it against him, then probably it's okay because he's prepared for it and all that sort of stuff, he's an expert. So now I get to show you what happened. So he played very, very quickly in the opening. He wasn't taken by surprise. He knew what was coming. H3, considered to be one of many reputations that have been published in Portuguese, to be honest. Every now and then someone emails me with just another reputation. Oh, but you can't play it because of this. So far, none of them I've found very convincing, and I have something against all of them. If you have your own, and you would like to bounce it off me to see whether or not it works, then please feel free, and I would like you to as well, especially before I publish my book. But anyway, okay, so bishop h5, c4. So similar to the lines we had before, but instead of wasting a move on d4, we're just immediately going to put the knight on f3. And the key point is to keep the bishop here where it doesn't want to be. It gives you some ideas of g4, but also, the bishop is quite useful here because sometimes it tracks back. Now, this is all heavy theory, I won't go into that stuff, but just to know that this is considered to be very, very good. Okay, so e6, takes. One principle, right? Of course I'm going to sacrifice the pawn anyway. There is, so I'll show you just quickly one little variation, a little sneaky variation that's never been played before, but was my preparation in case it should happen. So, castle seems like a very natural move. c6, bishop a4, knight e5, hits the knight, hits the pawn. If you put this on your computer will immediately start screaming at you and say g4, smashingly good for white. You take on f3, the queen takes back, the bishop has to retreat, and black's got a weak pawn in addition to getting a pawn down. But one principle, right? You take, queen b3, you've got to get out of this pin. Okay, otherwise I'm going to do some stuff, I'm going to castle, you've got to get out of it as quick as possible. So queen b3, computer's first choice, I'm not just making this up. Okay, queen b3, queen c7. Let's note, just for amusement's sake, that I am a piece down here. d4, and he's got a big centre. I've got a weak pawn. Castles. Again, I'm playing computer's best moves here. Knight bd2. h5. One principle. I put this on my computer and I walked away and I made a coffee. And I came back in 5 minutes and the computer said, almost winning for black. Completely changed his mind. Which is kind of lucky for me because I had some intuition but I wasn't entirely confident. So anyway, the point is that this was my preparation. Didn't get it, but White's done not only very natural moves, but he's done the computer's first choice in all the lines. Okay, so I didn't get to do it. I was a bit miffed about that. But instead, we had there must be a knight somewhere. And yeah, so we have this position. He continued to play his book recommendation, which was d4, c6, bishop a4, knight b6, b3. Okay, so now we're in our own territory now. So I don't know what I'm doing, he doesn't really know what he's doing, just that white's meant to be better. But it's clear that black has to push, because, I mean, that's the whole nature of this opening. So, bishop b4 check. Knight c3. If bishop d2 looks more natural, I can play bishop takes f3, and if queen takes, I play bishop takes d2, and if knight takes, it's pawn's hanging at the end. It's a little bit complicated, but basically the point is that bishop d2 doesn't really work here, so he has to play still a nice normal developing move, knight c3, castle, bishop e3, and here I started to run out of ideas, so I thought I'll launch this pawn down the board. A3, takes, A4, bishop A2, queen E7. Now, if nothing else, I've at least doubled his pawn. And I have some vague ideas of pushing through in the middle, but this move seems like a bit of an error because of what he played. Now, if he doesn't play this, I have compensation according to the computer. I also have ideas of playing queen f7, and then at g4 I can do this sacrifice. So he didn't want to castle, so he played g4 straight away. Now, unfortunately, this sacrifice doesn't work anymore because he hasn't castled, and after I take the bishop, he can just move his queen somewhere where it hits h7 because of his rook. So the sacrifice isn't working. So I have to put the bishop here, and then knight e5, and he was pretty happy because he's going to take this, he's going to mess up my pawns, he's going to have the worst pawn structure and be a pawn down. But I had a sneaky idea, so I played bishop e4, f3, and it looks like I've got to go back, but what's our motto? Well, anyway, I do go back, but I go back by sacrificing the piece, so, you know, I mean, we go forward because we sacrifice, so takes, 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 queen h4, so king e2, queen g3. So I've lost all my bishops now, but his king's a bit awkward and there's a lot of pressure on him. Now, for those who are wondering whether this is all sound, it turns out with best players position should be a draw, which I would count as theoretically not a bad result for my opening. But I would say it's probably more difficult to defend if you're white. So, queen g3. I talk a lot about psychology in chess, and I think it's not spoken about enough. I think it's very, very important. Here he was really feeling the heat. So he's white, and in these big matches, with white you don't want to lose. A draw is always sort of okay as far as the captain's concerned, but with white, losing is bad. And in the company of your fellow Grandmasters, to lose to an opening like the Portuguese is considered quite embarrassing. And I admit freely that I do sort of feed off these sort of elements by playing. There are some huge psychological advantages of playing these openings. You get a lot of enjoyment yourself, you play with confidence, and if you are a part-time player, you do want to enjoy the game. You don't want to play mainline theory and after 30 moves lose because Carlson came up with a nullity 2 weeks ago and you weren't on the internet at the time. You want to enjoy your chess, and if you can put pressure psychologically and on the board on the other guy, I think I don't see why there should be any problem with that. Okay, so little philosophical diversion over. Rook f2, rook takes, bishop takes. I've only got one piece not in the game, so it's time for him to come in. Queen takes e4 check would have been an immediate draw, but I was feeling aggressive. Queen d4 to hold f2, queen check, king e1, queen h1, must be bishop g1. Computer still says draw, draw, draw around here, but if you give it enough time and you sort of poke it in the right direction, he comes around to the party. So c5, I've got one piece not doing anything now. I've got to get him into the game, and I'm not going to worry about giving up one little pawn in this opening. So c5 to get rid of that guy so that I can bring the knight in with tempo. It's around about this point that the computer starts to realise, oh yeah, it's not that bad. Knight takes e5. Note that he can't castle, he's moved his king. That did scare me in the game for a second when I thought it might be possible, which was a bit funny. Oh no, hang on, I've done something. Awkward. So c5, he didn't take straight away. He played queen e3. First, then rook f3 takes. Knight f3. Queen d4 takes. His idea was that now he's forced my rook here, so he's not threatening knight check. I'm not threatening knight check anymore, which is fair enough. And now he can play c5 with some ideas of playing bishop takes, and then when my king goes away, he's got some background make ideas. So because of that, I actually had to play rook f8 myself, but that renews the threat of knight f3. So he took. Now, if he takes, then I will take everything. So he pops back to e3, queen g2, bishop f5, and now you might be able to see the finish. So and then this guy came down here. He actually allowed me to play checkmate on the board. He's a very nice guy. I was happy with the end result, so I got to put this on the board. That was that game. And So for me that was obviously psychologically a big step because it meant my repertoire was sound, but financially a very big step because he then offered me the book contract immediately after the game, now analysis, because he tried to do more reputations and they didn't work, and he said, oh, you should probably write a book on it. So now I have so that's what I'm writing a book on, and it's nice for me because I mean, I think I'm ranked about 600 in the world or something like that. You know, that means that there's a lot of people ahead of me. But on the Portuguese, you might not be surprised to discover there's no one higher than me who plays this sort of game. So I do have a slight little niche there. Okay, it's getting late, but I want to show you just one more game. I've spoken a lot about my own games, and I don't want to be that guy. So I'm going to show you a game played by someone who you all know and love, Guy West. Guy West, you may be aware of in your chess training of the Immortal game and the Evergreen game. Maybe you've heard about these famous games played many hundreds of years ago, these big sacrifices and stuff like this. You might have heard of Fischer's Immortal game when he was about 13 or so. And you might even have heard of Daryl Johansson's Pieces in a Box game. So Daryl ever showed any of you this? He's got a famous Pieces in a Box game where he wins by putting all of his opponent's pieces in a box. Everyone has their games, but you may be surprised to know that Guy West actually has what he calls the Guy West Immortal game. And usually you only have games by Grandmasters put in Formula, but he has a game that was put in Formula with a lot of nice limitations. It actually came from the Nimzovich, but it'll transpose to the Portuguese. And so I'm actually going to do it through a Portuguese move order, just to see, because this actually happened in 2 of my games today. People played this against me, and it's also one of the most common attempts to dodge this opening. So it can happen with knight f3, bishop g4, d4, or it can happen this way: d4, bishop g4, knight f3. Because you get hit with bishop g4, you don't want to go in for anything a bit tricky. You either play bishop e2 or you just play knight f3, because how can this possibly be bad, just to bring the pieces out in the middle? Now, like I said, this actually came from a Nimzovich, but it's going to transpose, so let's see. I'm going to have to do some on-the-fly stuff to work out how it would happen in our move order. Basically, so bishop e2, knight c6, c4. Now, who played this against me? Well, we had this game, yeah, so it's going to be almost you're going to play almost exactly the same way as Mikhail Sixtonson in 1986 in Biel, whose rating was 2245. So he played almost exactly the same way that you did this game. Now, Queen f5 is the best move in this position. Queen h5 is not the best move. That's a little piece of theory, but I played it anyway because I knew that I'd be speaking to you guys later today, so in our game I decided to put it only for that reason. Guy played like this, so we're going to have a position like this. Now the real point I want to get across here is that White's just played natural normal moves the entire way through. He's taken the pawn, he's been hit with bishop g4, but he developed a piece in the middle, can't be bad. He's castled, he's got 2 pawns here, and this queen sitting out here. It doesn't seem like White should have done anything wrong. He certainly shouldn't be lost, or worse even, but anyway, let's see what happens. So, e5, oh sorry, bishop e3, e5, d5, should I show you this correct? Oh no, it's not so interesting. Okay, so d5, e4, look familiar? Yeah, knight d4, knight takes d4, she takes g4, knight takes g4, threatening mate here, h3. Now it looks like you're just getting away with stuff now. You've lost a piece, but it's only temporarily. This knight's under attack, this knight's under attack. I've got a sense that this pawn's a bit awkward, and surely this king's going to get in trouble in the future. Knight f3 check. If you're going to lose the piece, you may as well go forward. Bust open the defences. Takes. Now knight takes e3 gives a slight advantage to black in this position, but we have one motto, and we stick to it. Queen takes h3, takes g4, bishop d6. Now, in the game we had, I think you played f4 here, and after queen takes e3, yeah, so White's in big trouble there. In this game, the guy decided to play rook e1, with the idea that if queen check, this king can sort of pop out. First things first, we're going to put the king somewhere it doesn't want to be. Now we have a problem. You've all seen this little pattern before. Bishop g3 check, king here. Queen goes to h2, queen takes f2 mate. But we can't get it because there's the bishop on e3, holding things together. We can move the bishop back and forward and have a draw, but then it wouldn't be an immortal game. So that's not what he's going to do. He plays rook d6, and yeah, so the idea is, like, for example, if knight c3, we play rook h6, threatening bishop check and mate down here. And if takes, well, now we're back what we spoke about. There's no longer a bishop on e3 anymore. So we can do bishop e3, queen h2, queen takes f2. So that's the idea behind rook d6. He plays queen c2. He's going to try and defend f2. So that's the idea of that. Queen f3 check. Didn't really want that bishop anyway. King takes. And now the move that I really like, and I think Guy must like even more, g5. Now, we want to play rook here, but we can't. There's a bishop. We just need to put a rook on the h file and it's mate. But if we play h5, we get hit by g5. If you can't play g5, then we're going to take him g4, and if he takes, we're going to play rook takes. So we've got the h file, except the g5. He can play g5. So we get in first. And even though we're 2 pieces down, h5 is coming. Really nice move. Bishop takes, h5, queen c3, hits the queen, hits the rook on h8, queen takes, check, king h1, the rook's still under attack on h8, f6. We're running out of pieces to sacrifice, but we still got one little guy more. f6. Now, if bishop takes, then we can take on g4 and take our rook, but we've got one guy left and we're going to drop him, mate. So everything under control. He's desperate to swap the pieces, so he plays queen e3. And here, g takes h4, h takes g4, and he resigned. If he played bishop h6 in this position, then, which is the last attempt, then takes, and now we do something that isn't very immortal. We actually just take all of white's pieces and play for material of all things, would you believe? But that wouldn't be a very pretty finish to the game. So the guy resigned, and that was the end, and got put in full mode and all that sort of stuff. So that's Guy Westmore's game. I wanted to finish in someone's game. It wasn't mine. I guess the last point that I want to make, so something that I can teach you that I know something about. I had struggled to think of what it could be. I am a part-time Grandmaster. I work very hard on being a part-time Grandmaster with the time that I have, which means I have to be efficient. If you have some similar problems with putting together a repertoire or trying to work in your chess but you don't have enough time, then the one principle that I would say is make sure you're playing something you enjoy playing. If you like the sacrificial stuff, then choose that. If you like something else, then choose that. Go for what you enjoy, because as James, I, and many other people know, if you're playing games because it's the proper moves to play and you lose, it can get very depressing after a while and you want to give the game away. So at least play games that you enjoy. But if you're going to play lines that you enjoy, even if they're dodgy, you've got to work at them. I've put a lot of work into this opening, as dodgy as it is. So choose your battles, choose what you want to put effort into, and if it's stuff that you enjoy, make sure you work hard at it, and I hope that might work for you as it has for me. Okay, thanks a lot for coming.